Hello guys and welcome to the PiG Daily episode number 11. The hidden advantages of aggression. Now if you're wondering why I'm giggling to myself, that's because we pretty much just did the majority of the episode and then found out that 2 minutes in, our webcam, brand new sparkling 1080p quality, which we're very excited about, decided to hijack my sound and try to use its own microphone to override my beautiful mic setup here, and just muted me. So I just did almost the entire episode muted. But that's great, that's just more practice, which means this time around it's going to be even better. I hope. Fingers crossed. We're going to just be like so on top of our scenes. We're going to be glancing at our microphone bar on our second monitor to make sure that's actually going up and down. And hopefully things will be working out. Now, today we are going to be talking about the hidden advantages of aggression. Before we talk about the hidden advantages, though, let's just talk about how most people understand aggression. So normally when you're talking to someone in the StarCraft community or they're explaining it to a new member, they talk about the idea of aggression in terms of economy, and that makes perfect sense. StarCraft 2 is a game where economy is at its core. Economy is the most important part of StarCraft, so it makes sense that's what we talk about. People will always say, normally you'll have one guy who's building his economy, and then the other guy stops building his economy at a certain point and instead invests all of his money into an attack and tries to either damage or kill his opponent. And if the guy who's defending holds on and manages to defend the attack, then the attacker is behind. He's invested in less economy, therefore he has less economy. He's behind in every regard. Well, not necessarily every regard. Definitely the most important regard. Definitely he is behind in economy, but we very rarely talk about it in any deeper sense. We very rarely look at it and say, well, are there any other advantages that the aggressor gains from the situation? Most people say, no, he's just behind. And we don't want to dumb the game down to just one thing. Keep in mind, StarCraft is bloody complex. Not only is the economy system complex, but there's so many other areas of the game that matter. So people always say, say like, yeah, you're behind. Yet if we think about it, there's been many famous games, players like Life, Shine, Haas, many players who their first attack falls flat on its face, and yet they come back and make it work. I personally have fantastic memories of playing WCS last year and 9-pooling against Targa 3 times in a row. He defended very crisply and pristinely with a 15 pool, so it was a very aggressive opening, trying to get damage done against this very safe opening, and he just blocked it 3 games in a row. And yet I went on to win that series with somewhat macro-oriented transitions and kind of going further into the game. And I actually remember Stefano was analyzing that series, bringing some of his eternal wisdom, and his analysis basically was, well, the 9-pool didn't work, so he should have been behind. I have no idea why he won. That didn't make sense. And I was like, okay, fair enough, Stefano. But it's one of these things where often if someone's attack doesn't work out, we kind of don't even think about it. We're just like, yeah, it just doesn't work. But we've seen this happen so many times at high level. We've seen the gods of StarCraft, when their attack doesn't work, they're so good at transitioning out of it. So we want to talk about that. We want to look at what are the hidden advantages. And the best way to do that is to look at a game where the aggression falls flat on its face, but the player finds a way back into the game. So we have the perfect replay for just that. It is Haas versus Happy from the round of 32 the round of 32 of WCS Spring Championship at DreamHack Tours. So let's dive on into game here, and let me just check that sound's not too loud. There we go. So in this game, Haas, being Haas, one of the most famous players for being just crazy aggressive, he goes all out. He goes gateway, double gas, goes for a bit of a probe scout, gets a nice fast second gateway, gets a cyber core, and what we're going to see out of Haas. Sorry for those really loud Protoss building noises, by the way. I feel like every other race is quite, reasonably quiet when you put it on 8 times speed, but Protoss is always like, giant crystals warping in. And Haas is going to get 2 Stalkers out, along with his Mothership Core, and he's going to go do a very fast pressure. So let's fast forward up to that point. Unfortunately for Haas, he's going up against a gas-first Cyclone build. Happy has rushed out this Cyclone, knowing it's so good at shutting down these high-tech aggressive units, destroys the Mothership Core, and the aggression falls flat. No more high ground vision, no more pylon cannon. What are you going to do, mate? Haas's pressure just traded a mothership core for 2 Marines. That's a fantastic trade for Happy. Haas not in a good position. His attack has not worked out. However, this is where we come to the first most important piece or the most important skill in order to come back when your attack doesn't work out, and that is knowing when to retreat, knowing when to not keep trying to force your way into a choke point. And very early on, Haas realizes that. Maybe a little bit too late, definitely could have pulled the mothership back a slightly earlier, but once that's dead, he just kills these Marines and then says, oh, we gotta back off, man. That Cyclone can out-micro and outrange these Stalkers. We gotta keep these units alive. Now, if Haas just runs his units up into the choke point and is like, try to kill him, loses all of his units, there's a pretty high chance we don't get to see those hidden advantages of aggression. Because remember, not only is Haas behind in economy because his attack didn't work, but if he throws his army away, his army is one of those benefits. It's one of those hidden advantages we don't talk about that much. If you don't throw your whole army away, you keep these units alive, this still represents a clear and present danger. Right now, we have Happy playing Trump style, where he's very scared of these Mexi Stalkers, and they're going to be coming up across the border. So he's like, we've got to build a wall, we've got to defend. I don't actually know what's going on outside my base, but as long as we have a wall, we're going to be fine. And that's the threat. It's the pressure of keeping those units alive. If you throw them away, Happy can say, oh, cool, he just threw away so many units. We can just take our natural, we can expand out. Even if he keeps warping in units, we'll be able to hold it. But as long as you recognize when the situation is hopeless and you pull back as Haas has, it allows you to transition in many different ways, and it gives you many options. We see Haas, he's cleared up that engineering bay that was blocking his natural, and he's building a nexus there, so he's starting an expansion. But being Haas, he's still not probing up, he's not planning just to go macro. What else has he got? Besides keeping the threat alive, he also has information. Every single time you attack, you get information because you force your opponent to show their hands, or their hand. You don't normally talk about it as, oh, what's he got in his hands in a game of cards, do you? It's in your hand. That's just my inability to speak, apparently. So, what did he see? He saw, oh, this is a really fast Cyclone. This is a gas first opening. Now, he actually did already know that with a probe scout, but that's fine. Even if he hadn't, he knew there's a factory with a tech lab. That's what built the Cyclone. Now, what's very likely to come out of that is also siege tanks, because Happy's going to be trying to be very safe here. And Happy, because he's not going to have a lot of marine production, you know, if he's gone a very fast factory, he's not going to have lots of barracks up. He's been investing in the fast gas. You can't build lots of barracks, lots of marines, which means he's going to be focusing his defense around these big power units, these siege tanks and Cyclones. So what's a very smart response? A very smart response here, choosing the right units for the situation, is Haas, because he got that information. So one of his little advantages of the first wave of the attack, even though it failed quite badly, is he's building Phoenix. Now, Phoenix have the potential to come in here, pick up the siege tanks, pick up the Cyclone, and disable them. And suddenly these exceptionally expensive units are just disabled. They're completely shut down. Unfortunately for Haas, Happy sees it, keeps the tank alive. So it gets very difficult here for Haas to get get the damage done. Really good pullback micro from the siege tank by Haas. Again, constantly denying those Phoenix lifts. But it was a great plan. If Happy was slightly slower and his tank and Cyclone got disabled, there's just a few unupgraded Marines and a medevac fighting 8 Stalkers. That attack could have just won the game. However, it didn't. And once again, we find ourselves looking at a situation where one of Haas's attacks has fallen flat on its face. Let's assess the game at this point. In terms of economy, we already see a nice little lead for Happy. But not just in that economy, 6 workers ahead when you're Terran is fantastic. Protoss is normally meant to be ahead because mules. Now, mules are intermittent, which is why the income tab doesn't tell you the whole story. You want to look mostly at the worker tab, because whenever a mule drops, this will jump up a whole bunch. Also, we see this command center already morphing into an orbital, while the Nexus hasn't even finished at home for Haas. So Happy has a clear advantage after stopping these 2 attacks. He's shut down the aggression very well, and from this point, Haas just can't get anything else done. But Haas has information, especially because he chose to go for the Phoenix follow-up. it gives him the ability to keep poking in without fully committing. So we see that especially when you go for a very mobile form of pressure to follow up your initial attack, you do something which allows you to keep threatening without being caught by the opponent units. As long as you still have the mobility advantage, you can do this. And it allows you to continually scout what's going on in their base. These siege tanks ever so slowly edging out, chasing away these stalkers. But Haas has no more plans of attacking. Let's look at how he transitions from here. Double probe production, chronoing. And at this point he's seen that there's 3 siege tanks. He knows that Happy is so paranoid. Happy is just massing up these siege tanks